All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Whew. Man, it has been a whirlwind. We have got a bunch of episodes coming up. Hey, wait a minute. Is this the first episode that we're going to mention this? Have you guys signed up for the newsletter? I'm going to be doing a newsletter because I am, and we are, and thanks to Lizzie, Lizzie's at fault for this. We have got a huge list of guests coming up, and I am looking forward to sharing all that information. I'd love to get them out in front of you guys, get some questions, some things that you may want to know from some of these future guests, and then we can move on from there. So if you haven't already, head on over to the Chasing Waypoints podcast, or Chasing Waypoints website. This is the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Can you tell it has been a long day? Head on over to the Chasing Waypoints website, chasingwaypoints.com. And scroll on down, you'll see the newsletter sign up there. So get in on that one. But that is enough about that. We are gathered here today to talk a little bit about rally. And this one, I think we're actually going to do something a little unique. I think we're going to do our first ever midweek update. We got a lot of racing going on. We got to catch up with Mason Klein. Mason Klein just showed everybody the fast way around Certos Rally. And today, we're going to be talking to none other than Mr. Happy Dave. Talk a little bit about his adventures down at Desafio Ruta 40, just getting wrapped up. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about how that event went for him, what that was all about. Let me get him queued up on the phone. So how's everybody been? We riding road books? Are we out riding? It's getting riding season. It is 70s here in California. Looks like it's going to be the rest of that for the week. I'm working on the age-old what to go with. Do we go with the Moose, the heavy-duty tube? Do we go Nitro Moose? Do we go Michelin? Do we go Pirelli? Golden Tire? A lot of options out there. Just trying to figure out which is the one to go with. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Hit me up. DMs on Instagram, or if you're on Spotify, you can reply right to this podcast, which is actually pretty cool. So, anyway, with that being said, let's place a call to Mr. Happy Dave. I hear he's on the road. Turn down the party a little bit so it doesn't blow his eardrums off. It's been an interesting week, man. Oh.
Hello, my friend.
Coming to you live from the middle of the road. What's going on, sir? How are you?
I'm good, Victor. How are you, my man?
I am doing good, man. It is the middle. I think it's the middle of the week. I don't even remember anymore. This adult thing. How are you? All is well? Fresh off a plane?
All is well, man. All is well. Yes, I'm just looking at the desert. It looks just like it did 6,000 miles from here.
It's funny how that happens.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Desafio Ruta. I didn't. I'm offended. I didn't even know you were going. But then again, that is my fault because I don't keep up with you guys enough. So how did this come about?
Well, for me, it was pretty simple. The way I kind of have my stuff set up is my agreement and commitment to my family is I get one big party pass a year. So I just kind of choose what it's going to be. And in the last few years, I've chosen rallies. And then when I kind of looked at this year's schedule, I went, well, I've been to Sonora. Morocco and Abu Dhabi are just straight desert and dunes. Mm-hmm. And then I looked up the makeup of Desafio Ruta, and I went, you know what? It looks like that may cover a wide variety of terrain, high elevation, low elevation, dunes, all kinds of stuff. And I went, I've never been to South America, so let's go there. And that's literally how it came about. And I am thrilled that I chose that round.
Nice. And so that's interesting. So it wasn't any one particular terrain. It was a good mixture of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely more on the desert side of things, but at the same time, there was a lot of ancient riverbeds, and there was some elevation involved that you could really get a different taste. Like at some points, I thought I was in Moab. Some points, I thought I was in St. George, then Barstow, and then there was one section I thought I was in Colorado. So it did really span a really awesome variety.
Very nice. Very nice. And so, tell them, it looks you were down there with the Med racing team, correct?
Yes. So a great team that was referred to me from Montana, Mike. He actually did a big, South America has their own rally series. And I believe he did one last year, and he actually was with another team. But when he came home, he said, hey, if I go back, I will probably go with another team as well, because I really liked what I saw when he saw how they did their operation. And I got in touch with Sergio and his wonderful daughter, Martina, who was helped translate for us. And Med stands for Mission to Dakar. And they supported Dakar when Dakar was in South America. And they're a fully fledged, fully resourced team. So from multiple mechanics, a great team owner, a physio, massage therapist. And I mean, they had it all. They had a team sports manager, 10-time Dakar finisher, Laurent Lazard. So it was a full-on operation, and I'm very, very thankful I made the right choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. That was actually pretty cool, because I'm watching Laurent. We recently just had him on the show. I did an interview with him, who ends up being a family friend of our neighbors. And, we're talking, and then so I'm following him along on his social media. I'm seeing the posts and, Ruta 40. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, Happy Dave he's going there. What? And then all of a sudden you guys are in the same post. I'm like, what? So that was pretty cool to see. And yeah, Lauren's got stories. Did you guys get a chance to talk a little bit about his Dakar history and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did. And it's just incredible. I mean, he's a 12-time participant, 10-time finisher, and finished 10th one year. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, I don't even know how to comprehend that. Yeah.
Yeah, you think about it, like, you mentioned you go and do it once, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm never doing this again, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then at one point, it's just like, it's like driving to the 7-Eleven or, the local convenience store. It's just familiar to you, which is absolutely crazy. But that was really cool to have somebody like that on the team, I imagine. Help support you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I got to thank you, too, because he showed me the message that you sent him that said something to the effect of, hey, take care of Happy Dave.
Yes.
He's good people. So thank you for that.
Of course. So, okay. All right, meat and bones. Let's talk about this rally. Stages. What were the, stage 1, 3, or the long days, short days? What was tell us.
Right out of it was for my personal experience, it was the challenge was it was the longest days on the biggest bike, and being in a country that nobody speaks your language. Like, those were huge. So right out of the gate, we did 700 kilometers. They were not bashful right from the very beginning. Day 2 wasn't much shorter. I don't remember the exact distance. Day 3 was also healthy, right around 500 kilometers. Day 4 was Fiambala, the iconic dunes, the shortest distance, but the hardest day. And then day 5, I'd have to look, but day 5 was another 600 kilometers. And man, like, I've heard pros say it before, that transfers / liaisons are one of the most challenging parts, and it doesn't get any airtime because it's not race time and all that stuff. Man, I got to tell you, those are by far the most stressful part of the day.
Really?
Like we're on the bike way before daylight. We were freezing down there. I'm so thankful it didn't rain because I was unprepared for cold weather. But I mean, it was, I don't know what they call it in Celsius, 0, but it was 30 degrees, 35 degrees. And then you're clipping at 110, 105, 106 kilometers, and it's cold. So the transfer sections were no walk in the park. And what made them even more challenging is there's a time limit on them. So, yeah, you're not on the race clock, but you do incur a penalty if you don't meet the time limit. And they didn't give you a whole lot of extra time. Like if somebody had a blown moose or you had a slight mechanical or you needed to stop, go to the bathroom, if you needed to stop and get gas and there were a bunch of, T-classes or four-wheel vehicles there, like you were – like one night I came in 2 minutes before my limit time.
Yeah.
And I think another day I actually came in over the limit time, but I got an exception because when the four-wheel trucks or when the four-wheel cars are filling up fuel, they take forever. So, the stages were, my gosh, man, like I just mentioned the areas, but think rural Nevada, a lot of the high desert in California, Moab, St. George. Think of all of that stuff on steroids by 3.
Oh, wow.
Like river rocks that I couldn't pick up with 2 hands. Washouts that were 30-foot cliffs. Dunes that, Dumont, you can scream any dune in Dumont in 4th gear. Glamis, Oldsmobile here, gear maybe, or Hill, maybe 5th gear. St. Anthony's up in Idaho, 5th gear. Nah, Fiambala is more like you better pin it in 5th gear, and when you click down to 4th, starts doing switchbacks.
Oof.
I think I cycled my motor 4 times, and what I mean by that is when my motor got hot, I lost my clutch, and I think I cycled that 4 different times while I was in the Fiambala Dunes.
Oof.
Yeah, it was, I'm so thankful the bike held together, and I'm so thankful physically my training paid off because I actually felt the best physically, and, thrilled that when you're pushing the limits of the mechanics and the bike and it holds together, because there were so many times, I lost count. There were so many times that it wasn't a matter of, can I make this dune? Or can I make this line? Or pin it and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And literally, Victor, I cleaned up the pack. Like I ended up finishing last in the Rally 2 class. And to think that I was at my limits almost all rally long, competing with the best in the world, it was amazing. It was amazing the bike held together. And I'm so thankful that my approach was preservation of the machine earlier in the week.
Yeah.
It was nuts. It was nuts.
That's crazy. And I do want to, you mentioned it, and I want to touch this because a lot of people, I think that listen to the show, obviously we got a lot of motorcycle riders around the world, and a lot of these guys know, but there are people that don't necessarily know wind chill. And this has been a subject that's come up with Mason and guys at Dakar, yourself right now, and pretty much anybody that starts these liaisons at sunrise, basically. You mentioned earlier 0 degrees Celsius, so it's about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, if I remember correctly. At between 60 and 65 miles an hour, that's going to feel like 10 degrees. So for those of you in parts of the country that have experienced 10 degrees firsthand, you know exactly what we're talking about. For us here in California and, Nevada. Well, you get down in Nevada, no? You can get pretty chilly in there in some of those areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, relative to what you're saying, it's cold.
You want to slow down, but now you got a clock competing you. Saying no. Oh man, that is crazy. Okay, so of those stages, thinking about it now, in a little bit warmer weather, If you could rerun one of those stages, which one?
Loaded question, all 5, man.
Not making it easy.
So stage 1, a riverbed 200 meters wide, and pick your line, because I mean there was some moisture there not too long before we got there, and it was just you were two-wheel drifting most of the time, and the terrain was grippy enough that you could enjoy it, and the sheer walls of the rain erosion were so spectacular. I would do that again. Of course, Fiambala, they ran us. It was an interesting layout of how they ran us. So they ran us from the valley floor up into the dunes. Then they ran us back down the dunes. Then they ran us back up, back down, back up, back down. And what we did is we traversed, from what I think it was, about 60 kilometers from start to finish going south. But we ran a little over 100 kilometers of dune terrain. That was just epic because it went from massive peak dunes to rolling knolls dunes with some vegetation, and then it also mixed in some sand tracks where if you could just close your eyes, put your front tire in the rut, and hold on.
Wow.
So, and then to finish on Friday, day 5, the very end of the special, hard packed road, easy, between 110 and 130 kilometers, a lot like a Moab-esque type rock formations with these pinnacles, and just a track that was 30 meters wide. And I think we were in a national park, and it was just, oh my gosh, my body had nothing left, and I was leaning so far forward over the windscreen, standing up to just let my weight balance against the wind resistance, but I had to because it was too fun not to go as fast as I possibly could.
Oh man, it's one of those. It's that thin balance between that survival mode, where you kind of want to lay back a little bit because you got a long way to go, but at the same time, if I'm going to leave everything, it's going to be right here. I feel like that's how I feel like that's how that balance is. Like if I have to stop and take a 10-minute break at the end of this stage and take a penalty, I will do so. But I'm having way too much fun right now to to switch down the gear.
Yeah, man. You get into that tricky headspace where, am I doing the most responsible thing? And sometimes the inner kid pops out and goes, I don't really care.
Wee! But that does bring up an interesting question. So I'm used to seeing you on the trusty Honda. That's normally what I would refer to more as a rally light bike, right? So you've got I believe it's the Sonora Tower on the Honda, or what?
Yeah, no, it was actually a custom tower made by Jamie Campbell and Skylar Howes and Garrett Boucher.
Yes,
and it's intense. It's perfect.
Nice. Okay, so Honda versus RFR. Rally Light, I would still consider that bike, your normal Honda, the Rally Light bike versus the Rally Factory replica bike. What is that like? I mean, is it like you just stepped onto an adventure bike and, oh my God, this thing's a huge pig and it's just hard to handle? Would you have rather have had your Honda? How does that?
So Dave Pearson and Mo Hart were awesome enough that they let me get a few kilometers on their RFRs out at SoCal Rally.
Okay. So
I had about 10 or 20 Ks on big bikes, but I've never ridden them, never got used to them, never raced them. I was fortunate enough to ride a 2017 RFR, KTM 450 RFR. Mm-hmm. It was an absolute monster. I wouldn't say it's an adventure bike. Some of the specs, I could be specifically wrong, but what I understand from it is from an enduro light bike, it's about 6 inches longer.
Mm-hmm.
Fuel capacity is a little over 30 liters, which I believe translates to about 8 gallons with a front and rear tank.
Mm-hmm.
The motor absolutely revs to the moon. I held one time all week, I held it at the throttle stop across a dry lake bed at 152 kilometers an hour. And that was the only time. It always wanted more from me. The faster you rode the bike, the more buttery and sweet it got. I want a rally bike. I'm going to get a rally bike. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to have one. They're a tremendous machine. And then how durable they are. They're amazing. They are engineered amazing. And remarkably so, planted, there's so much low center of gravity that rock beds, sand washes, laying it over in the dunes, it was so planted that I had all the confidence in the world, and actually I had more confidence in a rally bike than I do my Honda, just because the center mass is lower.
Okay.
And once you get used to, turning right to go left, once you get used to letting the back do its dance a little bit under control, it turns into a Corvette Duramax. It's just magic. I don't know how else to explain it. Yeah. It's just magic.
Yeah. And that, that's an interesting, what you mentioned is how the back end will step out and slide a little bit more. There was a conversation that I had at the Kirk Caselli Foundation fundraiser that they had a few weeks back. And that was a very specific characteristic of the ladder frame bike that was mentioned, is that its ability to kind of step out and just be very predictable and kind of controllable in that, versus the newest generation of bikes where they tend to be a little bit more on edge, but I guess easier to turn in some aspects.
Yeah, and I talked to some of the guys too, and there are some guys that prefer some of the older models because of what you had just mentioned.
Yeah, they're just a little bit smoother on that.
Yeah, and when you get comfortable and knowing where it's going to go, that's a really cool feeling. I didn't really get there till about day 4, but once I did, for me it was a difference between dragging the back brake and pumping it. And when I was on hard surfaces, I would tap it to break it loose, let it go, and then drag. And then so I would tap it to break traction. It would start sliding. Then I'd drag. So I would sit the back end down. It would compress, and then I would lay on the throttle and have good traction. Where if it wasn't hard pack, I wouldn't pump at all. I would just lightly hit it and drag it, and then release, just so I could correct where I wanted to be. But I also hear that the newer models are so fast and so nimble and so predictable as well that I think the newer models, the pros, I think they play more with their fuel placement. I don't know if they run the tanks as low, or because you'll hear a lot of guys say run the rear tanks out first. Well, that was not the instruction that I got.
Yeah.
And I like the instruction I got. Lauren was like, nah, run about 100 kilometers off the rear, and then run about 100 kilometers off the front, and then go back to the rear, and just kind of seesaw your fuel level as you go. And I found that to be really a really good approach.
Yeah. That's interesting. So that to me tells me that you've got a bike that's really balanced front to rear, with that weight down low like that. And then, that back and forth level. So you're just trying to get the fuel down to the lowest part You know, it sounds like it's a well-balanced bike, but it only gets even better as the fuel level kind of decreases evenly and gets down to its lowest point.
Yeah, man. I liken it to like a set of elephant nuts. Like when you look at an RFR,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like it's got a Goodyear tire on the bottom of the bike. It's fat.
Mm-hmm.
But now I appreciate it. I appreciate the engineering, because when you do run the fuel out of the front tanks, you drop it from up high above the trestle. You drop it to the middle of the height of the motor very quickly, because the tanks are actually pretty thin up top.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get wide down low.
Down at the bottom. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. I mean, it's great. I mean, you think that bike, how well thought out that bike is. I mean, it's still the bike, you know, if you wanted, you could score a 2024 if you are lucky enough to get one of the 80 that are made for this year. You know, I remember there was I think it was a few months ago that there was an accidental oopsie that was, I think it was KTM marketing trying to figure out how big the market would be for those bikes here in the U.S. But I guess that they had accidentally released the order forms to the U.S. dealers for the RFRs. And I think they were greeted with many orders they instantly knew they weren't going to be able to fill, because it's not, you know, approved for importation to the States. But, you know, I think those bikes are phenomenal as far as the engineering goes and everything, so much so that they're still selling the current version. You know, obviously they're not going to give away the factory, you know, the newest MX frames type, you know, bike yet. It'll be probably a few years before that ever happens. But it's, you know, it's nice to see that, yeah, even these older bikes is still just kind of like old trusty. So.
Yeah, if you said, Dave, would you buy a 17 or 18 with low hours or low miles? I wouldn't even doubt. I wouldn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, I mean, they're unicorn bikes, man. They go for some penny. They do get some coin for those things, but yeah, it you know, it's a tool of the trade, I guess you could say it. I mean, it's like the last bike you're ever going to buy. It already has everything. So, you know, if you add up everything that it's going to cost you to just build one anyway, then you realize quickly that maybe I should have just started with this. So
you're right now. You're talking my life story.
Yeah. It's funny. Eventually we'll get like Visa or Amex to sponsor the podcast, and then we'll maybe make things a little easier. We'll start some scholarships, you know, some GoFundMes. So tell me a little, you know, all right, we just got done Desafio Ruta. What's on the books next? You mentioned earlier that this is like your once a year party pass. You got any other small rallies, any other events you're thinking about doing?
Yeah, you know, I stateside, I know Kota is going to happen again next year. Mate Graves is a fantastic guy, runs a top-notch event. Then I know Dr. Coma out of Northern Nevada. I know he's working on a Battleborn rally.
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking to Willem about the Baja rally coming up in a few weeks, but I won't be able to swing that. So right now, I think my focus is on a rally bike. I think I'm going to talk to the guys at Covey and see about their Pro Rally 450 bike.
Mm-hmm.
Had a really cool guy out of Patagonia. His name was Ivan Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And we joked. We kind of found each other all week long. Same blood type, so we called each other brothers because we had the same last name. And he was on a Covey, and I asked him point blank, how modified is your bike? And is it withstanding all of the beating?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, this is a stock bike. The only thing I've done is put an ERTF device on it, and everything else is bone stock. All we did was prep it, and it is run perfectly fine all week long.
Yeah.
So, and I've talked to a few other guys that have ridden that bike, and the reviews are good. So I don't know how you don't consider that price point,
mm-hmm.
availability. There's a lot of the buzzword is market disruptor,
mm-hmm.
and they're coming out with a motocross bike for $7,000. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to shake a stick at it. So I think a lot depends on which bike I get next, of what event I will choose to do. I think it's the Hellas Rally or the Ceres Rally in Greece. That sounds fun. The South American Rally Series, they have 5 or 6 rounds that I may consider to go back to. There's a ton. There's just so much now. There's so much option if you're willing to travel. Rally is huge in other parts of the world. Like just to talk a little bit about the people in South America, the sweetest people. I'd be in the middle of nowhere. I would not have seen somebody for an hour or two, and all of a sudden you'd come into this area. It wasn't even a village, and there'd be hundreds of people lining the cliff cheering you on.
Nice.
And it just, like motorsports, like the culture down there, everybody's on a moped or a small CC motorcycle in their village. That's how they get around. So two-wheeled sports down there are huge, absolutely huge. You would have thought this guy with a smiley jacket in last place was racing for first. It was the coolest thing ever, man.
That's awesome.
Sweetest people. I mean, I think I enjoyed taking pictures with those kids and adults more than they did. I mean, it was just the sweetest thing.
Nice. Oh man, that is awesome. And I mean, it rally, obviously here in the States has got a ways to go as far as growing and that goes, but that's awesome to see. I mean, that the amount of fan base and, how supportive they are of that, I mean, I know that's got to be a pretty good, I'm sure that's like your third or fourth win, going into a section and now all of a sudden you got all these people standing around cheering you on and,
Yeah, man, and just like full embracing of the event. Like they haven't had the Desafio Ruta Quarente since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the towns we went through had military and law enforcement personnel escorting us through. Another thing that dawned on me, I don't know why it waited so long to dawn on me, but I was taking corners. I was taking the race line on corners, inside, outside, inside, outside. And late in the week, I realized, my gosh, with all of these spectators, thousands, all of them, no one was ever on the race course with a vehicle.
Interesting.
So based on the location of where these people were, they got there the night before or early in the morning.
Yeah. So
the honor and the respect level that they had for it was it's just one of those beautiful things. It makes your jaw drop because you're in awe. And I fell over one time in a wash. Like 15 people started sprinting over to help me. It's just, it's like the people of Sonora. Same thing. Ishai is that helped me when I ran out of fuel. It was the same culture, and there were so many times where I was like, I wish I could just take a handful of these people back home with me.
Yeah. It's interesting to see that. I mean, I guess, the cultures that you come across, when you're on a motorcycle, but then not only that, but then traveling the world in rally, and going through these towns that, maybe don't see a lot of spectators. That, is an interesting thing because I know that's a big safety thing here in Baja. When you go to these races is, you got to watch out for spectators at all times, and they're crowding the race course. They're trying to get the best picture, the best glimpse of the next guy coming through. And, and it just closes off race courses. It becomes very dangerous. But it's like, it seems like from what you're telling me, I just envision a sea of professional spectators, guys that know, people that know, what the event's kind of about, the speeds to expect, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's really interesting, to hear something like that.
Yeah, man. Like, for instance, I don't remember seeing any spectators on the outside of a race turn.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing them on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say professional spectators, They know they're two-wheel off-road sports.
Yeah. And where they need to be, and that does bring up something interesting. I had heard in one of the episodes when we were talking that the amount of, like, now that the Dakar has moved over to Saudi and is in the Middle East, is that the spectators and the party that it is, I say party loosely, just the amount of support and fan base and just the event that it is has changed. That you don't see as many spectators. You don't get that same vibe with the latest rendition of the Dakar being in the Middle East versus when it was in South America. And I mean, it sounds like with this, it just reassures that.
Yeah, there's I agree 100%. So on our team, we had Paraguay, Ecuador, Uruguay, a few Argentinians, and watching how they prepared, watching, I've watched a lot of the pre-rally stuff that they did in their home countries, press releases and pre-parties, and like it's definitely a different, more celebrated environment for sure. And they just, I think there's just a higher, what's the word I'm looking for? Not the word isn't respect, because there's plenty of respect here, but I think there's just a higher level of significance of what teams and racers do. Like the commitment to get to the start line. It's a huge commitment, and I think that information is out there more prevalently, and the fan base have more of an awareness of what it takes. I think it would be comparable to something like this. Like, I know what it takes to own a McDonald's franchise. You have to have a ton of liquid cash, and you have to have X amount of resources and X amount of business experience in order to be a McDonald's franchise owner. And I believe the analogy is comparative to what it takes to race rally, especially a world round. And I think the fan base understands that. They understand that the people they're watching are incredibly good riders and drivers. They are incredibly committed to what they're doing, and they either have a lot of financial backing, or they've saved their whole life for it, or they have a bunch of great companies and people behind them to get them there. And that, I think that plays and adds to a fan's approach to how they celebrate what's taking place.
That is absolutely, I mean, I think that it's like admiration. Is admiration the word for that? I don't know.
It'd be a great word. It'd be a fantastic word.
Yeah. It's one, I mean, when people look at a road book, if you don't know what you're looking at, they're instant admiration there, because it's like, okay, well, I respect the fact that you know what all of this means. When in fact, I say we, but I'm in this conversation, I'm the one with the least amount of road book experience. You look at it and you go, yeah, I more or less know what that means. So it's an interesting, it's an interesting dynamic. And how, like, in the bivouacs, when you guys were there, like, is there a lot of spectators coming around? I mean, is it a pretty big show? Like, there's constantly people moving back and forth that aren't actual competitors, or is it pretty sealed off?
Yeah, the way this rally ran is the start line was in La Rioja, and they did allow, it happened over a weekend, so the bivouac had quite a bit of foot traffic in it, and I think some of the local schools may have brought their classes on Friday. So yeah, there was a fair amount of attention there, and I believe there was a direct TV package that was going to go to, 6 different countries in South America. So there's no doubt that it got some exposure for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. But touch base on the navigation thing. That's one thing about flying robo. Man, just a few typo notes. But what I really learned about FIM road books there were multiple notes that had, when we're making a road book, we would have put 3 or 4 notes in, one note, 2 note, 3 note, 4 note. Where these FIM books, they're putting like 3 or 4 notes in one note.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like brain scramble. Like all of a sudden you're racing, and Jimmy Lewis will tell you all the time, you can't navigate and race at the same time. And all of a sudden here I am, I'm like interpreting encyclopedia, and it's only one note.
Yeah. So,
so that was gnarly.
Yeah. So that's that's an interesting one. And I kind of know what you're talking about, but like, normally, can you break that down a little bit? Like, okay, the typical 3 notes, off the top of your head, what would 3 notes look like?
Okay, perfect. Totally. So, for instance, the tulip is the wash splits go right at an average cap heading of 30. Mm-hmm. And then in the written section, it's 200 meters, change your cap to 15.
That would have been note 2.
Go down. Yep. Danger 2, downhill. Go left at the end of the hill.
And note 3. But all of that in one note.
All of that in one note. and by the way, when you split the wash, there's 3 options. And when you get to the bottom of the hill, there's 3 options.
Okay. So
yeah.
So they want to make you doubt yourself.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down. And then to look at the lines that were thrown down, dude, there was no doubt that there were pro games happening. I would see 3 lines over there and 1 line over there, the opposite direction. And then you'd see, 10 burned in lines in one direction.
And even with that, you're questioning it.
Yes, even with that. And then there was a really cool wash that was like 30 kilometers long. I was picking my way out of the deep ruts because some cars had come through. And I started cutting every corner. I was looking ahead on the book going, okay, I don't have to capture a waypoint. I can cut this corner. I can cut this corner. I can cut this corner. And I noticed about 2 or 3 Ks in, when I started doing that, I started noticing another track. And I'm like, okay, my speed is way down. And if I'm fumbling on another track, and this track is flowing really, really well, this is a GP Pro track. Mm-hmm. And there is no way you would have known those lines going the speeds those guys are going unless you had the hometown advantage. So at one point, I'm like, I've got to be following Luciano's lines. I have to. I have to, because the bushes that I was going through with my eyes closed, I was just hoping it went straight. and then I would stumble on a track, and I'd be like, this is cool, And the other thing I noticed too was the book author wrote those books for the guys going really, really fast.
Okay.
Because some notes I was like, that wasn't hard, and they told us last night in briefing that was supposed to be complicated. And then that happened 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, okay, why am I finding this fairly easy? Mm-hmm. And then I just happened to pick up my pace. I started to feel good. I had a surge of good vision and felt good. And then I started to notice, oh, that was hard. Oh, that was hard. That came up quick. Oh, I had 3 green boxes, and they were all really challenging. It's because the author is considering the speed of the GP riders, I think, when they're writing the book. And, what was a triple danger in the book, I'm like, that wasn't a triple danger. I just had to stand up and look forward. Mm-hmm. But if I'm doing 100 kph with 62 miles an hour, the GP guys are doing 130 or 140, so that danger is coming up a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So that was another mental adjustment that I learned that you only learn under race conditions. So I thought that was really cool to learn that about the author. And I just said, okay, that's an FIM author.
Yeah. So this is this was something interesting. I think I spotted it at Sonora, and I was talking with Kent and Jen this past weekend. Did you guys have any weird speed zones out in the middle of nowhere? Like you questioned it. Like, wait, why? It's flat. There's nothing here. Why is there a speed zone in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, but most of them were to respect the local landscape and some homes or structures or some commerce.
Okay.
But yes, yes, and I think if I haven't been home yet, but once I get in front of a computer, I think I'll be able to tell which day had the most speed zones that were completely in the middle of nowhere, and it was 100% of a mental discipline exercise. I think it was Friday, day 5, where we'd be in, a 10-kilometer section, high speed, not many turns, and then boom, speed zone, like not even in twisty turns, just in a cool valley floor, just to see if you were paying attention. I knew it, and which is interesting, and they're short. From what I picked up on is that they're short. Like literally, like if you miss it, if you go like, ooh, even if you put on all the binders, you're going to blow. You'll get almost to the very end of the speed zone. Like they're short, 100 meter to maybe 200 meters, not very long, but it's enough to get you a penalty if you just, again, if you weren't paying attention, if you weren't playing the game, and just kind of drifted off, it would definitely check you. So Chronicles of an Everyday Guy.
Mm-hmm.
At one point on Friday, I did it like the third time because my brain was fried. And in my head, I actually calculated, well, if I got the penalty already, how long does the penalty grace me with? Because I might just not even brake now and just go through it. Like, whatever. I probably just got a 4-minute penalty. It's only 200 meters. I'll just stay going fast because I don't think they're going to penalize me twice.
It's like, oh, well.
just
send it.
Just send it. It's more effort to slam the brakes on, be irritated that I slowed down and broke pace. I'll just take the penalty and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting, I heard rumor of it at Sonora. I heard some things. I heard that there was some even an uphill that was kind of, torture to have a speed zone to try and get up this hill. So I kind of see it as like maybe good and bad. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it on the race direction side of it, right? You put a speed zone out there. It's clearly marked in the road book. It's in an area where there is no danger. A speed zone is a speed zone is a speed zone. So you may not know, but that might be, some rancher's land that's an absentee owner. And the deal is I don't want you guys speeding when you cross my property line, even though you're only going to be in here for about 32 seconds. So I could see where, somebody blows by it, they take the penalty, and then they want heads at the end of that stage. Why did you guys do this to me? Why did you guys do it? But at the same time, I would think from the organization side of it is, well, it's in the road book. It's clearly marked. You're supposed to be navigating. You're supposed to be following the road book. So where's the question? That's, I kind of like it because I think that really breaks up and doesn't, I guess you could say, it doesn't allow the guy that's, pinning it all the time, that's just, trying to get lucky. It brings things back down a little bit.
Oh, 100%. No, racer beware, man. Racer beware. No issue at all with a book author doing that. And in all transparency, there was not an excessive amount of that. And I think 1 or 2 times. I think I had one little uphill that was a little bit of a challenge, not a big deal, and less than a handful of times where there were speed zones in the middle of nowhere. And no, racer beware. Like that's another element. When I try to explain rally to non-rally riders, and talk about all of the extra stuff outside of riding your bike. They're just like, that's just too much to think about. And I'm like, that's why they call us pilots and not racers. Yeah. Because you're required to process a high level of computation and information, and that is part of the challenge and the mental exercise. When I did some training a month before, and I went out to Michael Graves' place. He's got a road book out in Colorado, and I said to my partner that came with me, who is a dirt bike rider but not a rally guy, and I said, hey man, I know it's going to be a little boring riding with me, but I really appreciate you sticking with me because I need the mental exercise. Mm-hmm. I was riding enough. Physically, I was fine, but I needed the mental exercise. I needed my eyes to go up and down. I needed to think about distances. I needed to look at a compass heading. I needed to look at, where's the sun setting right now? Like all that mental exercise, and that's a huge part. You know the drill. That's a huge part for somebody that's trying to navigate.
That is, and I don't think a lot it's, I'm trying to remember. I think Ricky Brabeck said something about that. It's like trying to read and do 100 miles an hour at the same time, or text and do 100 miles an hour at the same time, or there was some analogy to that. Yeah, I wish I could remember it, but that is what makes the sport, though. That's what makes the sport, actually. That's literally what makes the sport. Because anybody, if you put a follow the line, follow the arrows, everybody can ride fast. They just wait for the next arrow, hope it's still there, that some four-wheel vehicle didn't knock it down. But it makes the difference when you have a road book, you have these games, quote unquote, these different tricky notes, these things, that makes it in. So that just makes it that instead of 3 people being competitive, you've got 10 people being competitive. And then you got that one guy, the wild card, that navigates super clean, isn't the fastest on any given day, but yet he's in the top 5.
Yeah, that was what hooked me on rally when Scott Bright, said, hey, read this book. And it was reading Lawrence Hacking's book. You've had him on your show. And the thing that caught me was a C ability rider could compete with a B rider, and a B rider could compete with an A rider because it wasn't all speed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's magic. It's magic. I call him Frenchie. He was in Sonora a few years ago. He was on an old clapped out WR250. Mm-hmm. and I was riding out of my mind. I was riding really well that morning, and I kept passing him. And then he kept passing me. And I kept passing him. And he kept passing me. And every time he passed me, it's because I blew a corner. Every time I passed him, it's because I was holding it wide open down a straightaway. And he was a better navigator with a better consistent speed. And I was a not as good navigator that had too much, my speeds were too volatile. And sure enough, he finished above me.
Yeah. So it's every, that note, the most efficient line, right? Not adding any extra kilometers for missed notes, missed waypoints, spending time looking for waypoints, that kind of thing. All those little.
100%.
Yeah.
It's 100%. The old adage, you got to slow down to go fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
not crash.
Yeah. And not crash. Yeah. And I mean, and it's very true. I mean, I've seen, I've talked about this before. I've seen literally rallies. I saw a Baja rally get decided between Trent Burgess and Colton Udall on the last waypoint of the day of the last stage. Literally decided the rally. So it's crazy, from being, seconds apart the entire time to minutes apart to a sizable lead, and literally one waypoint was the whole difference, and so I guess that's the reason, to love the sport. And if nothing else, and even if as a recreational rider, right, just the challenge of like, okay, hand me that piece of paper. I'm going to go find my way through the middle of nowhere using hieroglyphics, and I'll hope for the best. Just tell me more or less where I need to be. What's the nearest city that I'm supposed to end up by, just in case.
And the feeling in rally when you look in front of you and your eyes will take you as far as they can and you see nobody. And then you glance behind you and you're impressed with your own dust trail, but there's nobody behind you. And when you're that remote and you feel not alone, but you enjoy the vastness of your surroundings, to me, that is the perfect golf shot. That's what I desire every time I get on a rally bike, is to be so far alone, but feel not alone, because I know where I'm at. I understand my road book. I have confidence in my instrumentation and my bike. That's what I seek every time I get on a road book. And it seems the more I rally, the more I have that feeling. And it's a really, really cool feeling.
Yeah. Oh man, I need to get riding. I need that. Yeah. It is. I mean, I have the only, really, I've done some road books. I did a road book with Gnarly Dave. I've done, I did the SoCal Rally, a couple of days on that. I saw that Dan's out there on the bike already planning for 2024. And, you go back and it's crazy. You start remembering notes, you start remembering sections, you start remembering finding your way when you didn't know you were in where you needed to be. That aha moment, that instant gratification of hitting every note, or hitting notes and going like, yeah, I'm on it. I think the one that is maybe most important is, I don't know how the hell I just got here, but look at the view. I have zero idea. Do not ask me to come back out here again, because I will not know how to get back out here again. I've done so many turns, but then you look up and you just think wow, and you have no idea where you're going. You can't say oh, cool, we're headed to this. Oh, look at those hills off in the distance. You could be 30 seconds away from making a right and never looking at those hills ever again on the rest of the day's ride. And so I think that's that unknown, that challenge. I think that, that's a big part of it, I think, too. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When I, like you talk about Dan starting to prep for 2024, same. I'm going to, we use Desafio Ruta to launch the Ride Happy Foundation. So I'm coming home to begin planning its first event, and it's gonna look something like we did for Mason a few years ago. Yeah. And I'm excited to go back to that one road book, that one section that I had to punch a way through, and we couldn't do it for Mason's fundraiser because it was too far. But I haven't been back to that location since then, and I'll probably only go back on a road book. So I'm looking forward to standing on that cliff again, right at the Nevada-California border above Armagosa. And I can't wait to go back.
Yeah.
The only time I would ever be there would be on a road book.
That's, you think about how, where it is, how to get to it, where, but the idea of creating a road book and seeing the scenery and finding, I could go up this main road, but I know that this canyon has a wash that I could take to get to this other section over here. And you start stringing all of these things together, and it just makes that journey that much better. You earn that view for sure, rather than taking the easy way.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that too, because I think there's another element there that a lot of folks probably have heard from us, but they really don't get it. And that's the cross-country travel. Like when you got to go from point A to point B, and I really saw it in South America. Victor, our bikes were mangled every single day. One dude blew a tranny and a motor in the same week. I had electrical problems. I had no tower power for 200 kilometers, I think, on day 2. I had no ICO on day 5, no cap heading, day 4. When I was in the dunes, I had no cap heading. And day 1, I lost electrical power. I didn't have my distance reader, and our bikes are just trashed, man. And it's because of the true cross country. How many rain erosion? I couldn't even call them ruts. There were gaps. And how many times we come up on them and your only option was to stick it and just slam the bottom of the bike into the edge. Like, you didn't have an option. The thorns down there, like, you should see my hands right now. They're both swollen because you just plow, you just go. And nobody thinks of that because we're all used to riding trails.
Mm-hmm.
But the cross-country travel is, dude, it's exhilarating, scary. It charges you up, and it just absolutely roasts your bike. Like, I had to look down a few times to see if I punctured hoses. Because I'm like, I hope I'm okay with that. And then I'd look down, and there'd be 5 2-inch thorns sticking out of my kneecap.
Yeah. That sounds like a little more hard enduro than it does rally, but I mean, but that's the thing, and I mean, that's always what worries me with HP sections. When I hear, HP, typically I feel like a lot of times is reserved for the dunes, but you could be crossing from one trail to the next. I did see a few of those sections in the SoCal Roadbook Rally. It's kind of everyone for themselves. If you're the lead group, the lead guys, you get to cut your own trail, and figure it out. And yeah, you could be 100 meters off to the one side, and where you are, there are rain ruts, and there is a cutoff of, water cutout or something or bushes or trees or whatever, and 100 meters north, it was the line that everybody else took, and so I think that unknown, it just compounds. You don't know where you're going. Like they said, right? By the time you're at the second note, you're already lost because you have no idea where you're going. You just got all of these books or notes in front of you. So I think that just, it just compounds and grows. And I don't think I had, to be honest, and thinking about it, I had a good idea before I did the SoCal Rally and before I did the road book with Gnarly Dave. But it was when I did the SoCal Roadbook Rally that I realized that there's no way around it. You have to get behind a book. You just, whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a manual advanced road book, if it's a phone, if it's an old Gen 1 ICO, whatever it is. You just get behind a book and just go out and ride and just see it. Go get lost, where you guys were, right? When we did that event, you mentioned that with the event we did, the fundraiser for Mason at your place. There's Vegas, there's that. It doesn't matter. If you go lost, you're going to hit a highway. So, I think, when to hear you talk about it and those experiences, it's like, you just need to ride more. It makes me think I've been sitting on the couch for too long. This has been a long summer.
Yeah. And like, in all transparency, like this rally with me being at the back of the pack, I didn't have a lot of challenging navigation because I had a lot of reference points to go off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on day two, all of a sudden, I saw 2 or 3 guys pass me that started 10 minutes before me. I'm like, hey, something's going on. I am following the road book, and a lot of these guys got comfortable following tracks, and I always, so I did a lot of verifying my road book during this rally because I was toward the back of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
But when there was some really tricky navigation that was like justifiably tricky, my practice and my training of following the road book and not following tracks proved to be beneficial in the guys coming up behind me that started well before me.
Yeah.
And they were just doing circles out in dry lake beds and, some areas that were really defined pathways, but then all of a sudden there'd be a 100 meter by 100 meter crop of desert trees, and you'd see one track into them, and then all of a sudden you'd see 5 tracks coming out of them, and guys that were relying on tracks were getting lost. And here I was, burr, burr, burr. And then 5 kilometers later, I'd look behind me and go, that dude started like 10 minutes before I did today. What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, he's following tracks.
And
so yeah, there's that you got to get behind a road book to affirm what you were saying. You got to get behind a road book.
Yeah. And just go out and do it. Well, we got to figure it out. We got to get more of these events. I mean, I'm obviously it's growing. You mentioned it earlier, right? You've got Kent and Jen working on Battleborn Rally. Mike Graves out there doing the Kota Rally. You know, I know that Todd Zacher is working on some stuff back east. So, you know, you've got Baja Rally, you've got Sonora Rally. It's not too far-fetched to say you could do 5 rallies in a year next year.
Yep. And you know, it's funny that came up in a conversation a few months ago, and I haven't put the committee together yet, but maybe that's something that I tackle. I don't know yet, but it would be really cool if we had a unifying body of sorts that could bring these 5 or 6 rallies, you know, not a sanctioning body, but, you know, I was going to, you know, like South America, like SARR, SARR, like I was thinking same thing, NAR. Mm-hmm. It's funny pun with Gnarly Dave.
Yeah.
You know, North American rally raids or something, but I think that would help. I just don't know what it looks like. It requires a bunch of people and a bunch of work, but you're right. With all of those options, you know, something that would unify. Okay, all those events run rally comps. All those events run this protocol. Because to be honest with you, man, like you got Stella, you got ERTF, you got rally comp. You know, it's, you know, if you're just doing point-to-point racing, hare scrambles, hare and hounds, like, it's enough to figure that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there are some healthy opportunities for us to lower the complication of things to attract more people to be more enticed to try this thing.
Yeah.
Because we already know there's some real obstacles to starting.
Yes.
You know, it's a difficult discipline. It requires logistics, time, a little bit of money. You know, so I think there are opportunities that if we could kind of streamline some things across some multiple rallies, I think that would be helpful. And maybe somebody listening wants to take the torch. You know, I can't say enough about Robert Mann and Freedom Rally Racing, like what they've accomplished so far. You know, they grabbed it by the horns and, you know, with the support of a lot of guys. Like, look at Willem. Like, look at you. Look at what you've done. Like, you know, there's so much passion that I'm excited for where it's going. And I hope that Covey even, you know, accelerates, you know, what this discipline's all about. I mean, you know, even thought of different format rallies. Like, what happens if you did think about this for a second, a sprint enduro single day rally raid?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
road book.
Yeah.
Small bike, go.
Yeah. Well, then that's, you know, this was something, and for those for those playing the home game, this next part of the conversation is going to be an interesting thing, because I think it holds the future of what we may see here in the U.S., and that's that, you know, cloverleaf type rallies on bikes that are, you know, not the 5-gallon, 6-gallon, you know, like we're talking like 100-kilometer road books, and you're going to maybe run 2 of those stages, you know, in a day. Or it's a 200-kilometer road book, but you're coming back through this pit, and it's hot pits. Maybe it's, you know, and I think that what kind of reaffirmed me is a conversation that I was privy to and part of, that we here in the U.S., we've done off-road racing forever, and in very, very challenging conditions. There is nothing like the the Southwest desert in other parts of the world, close to where you were. But as far as the sheer number of racers and participants and guys that'll line up on any Sunday, or Saturday, it's crazy. And I think that, the cost entry barrier to the rally raid can be a little bit high. But it just depends on, what you want to do. Are you having to rebuild the bike? Are you having to add a $400 fuel tank to your bike because you won't make the distance of the 250 kilometer road book? Are we shooting ourselves in the foot to a certain extent by trying to continue to uphold this, the long rally stages and all that stuff when, we could be doing shorter 100-kilometer sprint road books, like you mentioned, and be able to get more people into the fold. You have rally light kits. You don't need a tower. You don't need a windscreen. You don't need, you just need something that holds the navigation stuff in front of you, and it's not a huge transformation of the bike. Where it's something that, here is 6 bolts, 2 wires. And you now have a navigation setup on your bike. And is it good enough to compete against Luciano, Skyler, Mason, any of the other guys, out there? No, not really, because it's not a purpose-built rally bike that's all it does. But what it does do is it gets you through these next 100 kilometers, in an easier road book, right? You don't want to try and make it too complicated, get a bunch of people lost, but you get something that's a little bit more simple, that's a little bit shorter, that's a lot easier on the impact of the financial side of it. And I think you're going to get more guys that'll go for it.
Oh yeah, man. Like I just bought Willem's Rally app.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's what I did when I went out to train in Colorado. My awesome buddy Mark Klein let me borrow his Yamaha, and all I did was bolt on the mount to the handlebars. I charged the pad up the night before, and boom, I had my electronic road book for the day. No wires, no nothing. But it worked fantastic. And boom, I took it off that night, and we ran single track the next day, and in another part of the state. Like I could the more we're talking about it, the more excited I'm getting about it, because that would be, dude. Like, think about it. You make a road book for a loop around Glen Ellen, and it's a 12-minute loop. I don't know how many Ks that is. What are they usually, like 10 miles? So a 16-kilometer road book. I mean, how fun would that be?
Yeah. No errors.
And you're on your race bike.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. All right. Are you looking to promote your brand to a worldwide audience on the podcast? Drop us a line at podcast@chasingwaypoints.com, and let's talk. See what we can do about getting you some more ears for your company and getting the word out worldwide. Yeah, super simple setup. You got a little bit of room. I mean, you literally, all you would have to do is move the traction control, depending if you're on an Austrian bike, or I think some of the newer Japanese bikes have it too. But if you've got a traction control / map switch, move that on over, bolt this super thin, 3-4 button road book switch, and mount this thing over the bars. And I mean, is it perfectly in the line of sight? No. But does it have the map, and does it have what you need? Yeah. So just navigate accordingly,
Yeah.
So I really do think, and this was actually, we also talked about this with, at the Caselli fundraiser, was, with Jacob Argybright. That was something that we talked about as well. And I completely think that it is feasible. It could literally happen. It's just more people getting involved, having the setup, having the information out there. And that's a big thing, because I mean, it's, road book is expensive. You get a couple of ICOs on there. You get a couple of RNS units on there. It could get pricey really fast, but the more you start eliminating things that people already have, things that are laying around the house, or things that are easily obtained, all of a sudden it becomes plausible. And then road books, and then you have road books that are short, sweet, to the point. I think we're going to have, it's like soccer. It's popular in the rest of the world except here. There's a following. There's people that look at it. There's people that, they're fans, and, there's the home teams. But it's not like it is in other parts of the world, where if you're wearing the wrong jersey, it's just as bad as wearing the wrong color at the wrong part of town. And so I think that's kind of the similar comparison here. Yeah, rally is popular in the rest of the world, but just here in the States, it just hasn't found its mainstream side of it yet, but growing obviously with the amount of events that are starting to pop up.
Yes, I like I say we do it. Like even like and I was hoping I had an opportunity because I wanted to shout out to a bunch of guys at home.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't we call on the experience of guys like Dave Pearson and Mo Hart and Scott Bright and Alex Martins and the Chris Vestals? Like, why wouldn't we call on their experience and say, hey, the big international game, what could we make right here in our backyard that faces the obstacles that we face?
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to mitigate those obstacles and still have some type of event. Like you and I just talking through it right now, I'm just like, well wait a minute. I could put Skylar and Mason and Ricky on a single day course that I think they would still have fun on,
mm-hmm.
but it wouldn't wreck their schedules, and it could attract a fair amount of attention where it was something like a short road book close to home, and boom.
Yeah.
What did that take?
Mm-hmm.
When you talk, like he's a wealth of knowledge. Scotty, Baja, there's so much. I think there's so much intellectual brain power that is so accessible right now that I think we can do something. I get more excited that now we're talking it out, and I get excited about it because I think it's 100% feasible.
Yeah, with just basic things, and it's crazy, it doesn't have to be, I had seen this before. I don't recall where it was, but not to cheapen, but think about it as the minimum viable product. What is the minimum thing? Like, okay, you need a road book, you need a very basic navigation setup that can bolt on pretty much any bike that's out there, and make it happen. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to go big. Hey, if somebody wants to, there's guys that are going to want to show up with a full-on RFR to these events, but you don't need that. You'll do just as well on your WR250 that's tuned to within an inch of its life, that's meant for hair scrambles, and it's got a tank just big enough to do 80 miles at race pace. And here, bolt this on, go get lost, and if you give up, just aim for this hill, we'll fly this flag, or whatever, and just come back to it, and, I think that there's so many opportunities to do something like this, it could just so easily be done. There's enough people down here. Gnarly Dave's got a bunch of road books, up in the high desert, Jacob Argybright as well. I know Mason's got road books up in his area. All of these things where it could just be simple enough. I know Ryan Norino's been doing road books out east in the Plaster City area, or Plaster City as I call it. But, there's a, where do you want to go? It's easy enough, couple, do 2 road books a day. 120 to 180 miles in a single day. It's a pretty good day, break it up into 3 road books. A short break in between, whatever it is. Or maybe you do one Friday afternoon and you do another 2 on Saturday, and then you're home by Sunday. I don't know. There's so much you could do, and it doesn't have to be all about 300 kilometers. They traveled across the entire peninsula. None of that. It's just something that is just basic and fun, and everybody got lost, and then they came back, and they're all standing around the campfire, giving each other crap about how they missed this note, and they would, they can't navigate their way out of a paper bag, or I don't know. It's just something super simple. But
the happy sprint rally.
There you go. It sounds like we've got the one for Nevada covered. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Nice. Well, excellent. Well, how far are you from home? Been on there?
Yep, just dropped down the hill in Prim. So
Oh, nice.
The last 65 Ks, and I'll be at my front door.
Nice. Yeah, I remember that downhill into Prim. Prim at the top of the hill looks like it's like 3 minutes away, and after about 45 minutes, you're realizing you just barely got to Prim. I don't know how the Earth rotates on that downhill. It just seems like you should be there in way less time than you actually are. So nice. Well, excellent. Well, any closing thoughts, suggestions?
No, man.
Tips?
Thank you as always. Thank you as always of just leading the charge that you're leading. I truly believe, having watched your presence and your podcast grow, that it's been a leading force and getting more guys enthused about it, keeping guys that are already in it, more in it. I know it's been that way for me, so I'm thankful for it. And it's just I guess my closing thought for anybody listening is call with questions. If you're intrigued by it, like, have a discussion with somebody. Get out and ride with us. It's super fun. I mean, for the last year, or prior to me getting the Honda, I rode my 300 with my phone using the Rally Navigator roadbook reader. Like, I didn't need anything, So it's just a fun way to do it. And I think a good analogy is my training loop. I have a training loop near my house, 64 miles. Mm-hmm. I wrote a roadbook for it. And now this is the loop that I do like the back of my hand. I test all my stuff on, all my settings. I wrote a roadbook for it, and I got lost in the first 20 Ks.
And you designed the roadbook.
and I know the terrain, and I wrote the roadbook. So just following a roadbook, it's just a completely new experience behind your bars. And obviously I'm biased. I would encourage anybody to call, reach out, ask questions. I'll make time to show you it and show you what we're looking at, how we do it, where it's challenging, why it's fun, why it's frustrating, why it keeps you coming back for more. Because it's just one of those things. Looking for the perfect golf shot.
Yeah. In search of that perfect road book. No notes missed, no penalties incurred, clean run.
Clean run.
Yep.
When I came in and didn't miss a waypoint when I had no tower power, I was so pumped. I was so pumped because I had to figure it out. I had to figure out, okay, I got no instrumentation. How am I going to do this? What'd I do? I followed my road book.
Yeah. That's all you can do. And draw on every bit of nerve and trust in yourself. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And I applaud you. I mean, that's, it's awesome. I'm glad you had a good time down there. Got to see a lot of terrain, experience a different part of the world, see the sights.
Yep, awesome. And my claim to fame of my new Spanish, I believe, is Dios la bendiga el cocinero. And when I said that the first time, is God bless the cook. When I said that the first time, our table of our team and our mechanics and our racers, it's like 25 people.
Yeah.
Dude, they were all pumped. And then they all said it. And then they all said it in their native languages to our cook. His name was Peachy. And it was really, really cool, man.
That's awesome.
It was really cool.
That is awesome. Things that, it's the rally life, That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I posted something with a picture with really, really, I was pumped, and they captured the image, and I went, this is rally. So much more than riding a bike.
Yeah. We gotta keep working on getting more people. Get that experience.
Yep.
So we'll get it.
We'll get it.
All right. Awesome, sir. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate the kind words. We all work together. We're all part of it. And if it wasn't for you guys, at the bivouacs, when we're at the events, or when I'm at the events and stuff like that, it could get tough. It gets challenging. Some days, you don't need a road book to want to just run off into the sunset. And it's guys like you, the Pearsons, everybody, that helps helps keep the ship moving in the right direction. So we appreciate it. I appreciate it immensely.
Oh yeah, man. Better together.
Yep. Yes, sir. Excellent. Well, I will let you get those last few tunes in on your road home, and I guess we'll probably be running into you here shortly, or sooner than later.
Okay, I like that plan.
Excellent. All right, man. Thank you very much, and enjoy.
Okay, bud. Thanks, Victor. Ride happy.
All right. See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, so there you have it. That is Happy Dave, just back from Desafio Ruta 40. Very interesting, you know. It's been a common theme, and we've talked about it, that there are going to be different, like if you want to travel the world, there's a rally raid somewhere over there, you know, or somewhere close to it, and you're going to see things that, you know, maybe not the typical. I'll say it again, and you guys have heard the story, and you guys are probably going to say, okay, here he goes again with the Steve Henchveld thing. But when you got people that ride those areas time and time again and say that I've never been down this road, it's something amazing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Those last 20 minutes, I think, are really going to be a prediction of the future and what we're going to see here in the States. I know I'm helping and trying to work towards that. Become a reality. You know, we do things here in California in racing. I've been in racing, not in this particular discipline, but I've been in four-wheel racing for a very long time. Been to a lot of the races, been to a lot of these events, and we do it here. We get it done here in the States. It's just a little bit different. It's just kind of changing the discipline. And hey, as they close down more areas, and as they close down land, and as landowners in certain parts of the country get tired of having guys race through their lands and the accidents and the this and the that and the other, it just becomes that much more attractive for rally. You know, the navigation based side of it. And hey, there is room for spectators. There are things that you can do for spectators. There are that kind of thing. There is that popularity, you know, the social media thing. All you need is good coverage, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, and you're going to have a great time. You're going to get to see a lot of different things. And hell, you know, like I said, if you're listening, you guys want to drop us a line. Let's talk. A lot of these organizations are always looking for volunteers and additional help. These are things that will help you, you know, kind of get into the sport and just get acclimated to it and get to see all of these stories and rub elbows. You know, look, when it's chow time, when it's dinner, you could literally be sitting on the table on the end, you know, Mason's sitting on the other side, or Skylar's sitting on the other side, Toby Price, any of them, you name it, Ricky Brabeck, any of these guys could be literally rubbing elbows with you and just talking, and you're hearing the conversations and all the stuff that is going on. It is something like no other, you know, and it is a very different setting. A lot of majestic stuff, a lot of stuff that you're not going to get to see, a lot of areas. I've bivouacs that I still remember my first time that I was down at Sonora Rally, you know, staying at one of the Indian lands, the tribal lands that are outside of Sonora and headed south. You know, no cell reception, no nothing, primitive buildings, primitive campsites, you know, just this mini dry lake bed there. And it's just so remote and so quiet and so peaceful that you forget how big society has gotten, you know, and it's really, I mean, really epic. Baja Rally, Catavina, going down and staying there for a few days and seeing that area and just being and spending time in that area. You know, that's one of my favorite areas to visit. You know, you go over the bridge, leaving El Rosario, and all of a sudden that's it. No more cell reception. You know, you put your phone on airplane mode so it doesn't kill the battery, and you can play, you know, whatever you want. You listen to music or whatever. But you get into this area where you're just disconnected. You know, I remember riding and doing some rally comp stuff at 2 a.m, taking my bike out and making sure that the arrow is pointing in the right direction and that we got the stage program correctly and everything is good to go for the next day. You know, just doing the double checks. Absolutely quiet, pitch black road, you know, no moon, just the lights of the bike, and just sitting there, you know, with the light on and just letting the bike, you know, idle, and then ultimately turning it off and just sitting there and listening, you know, in the middle of nowhere. I was down there for a rally. If this was a Baja race, there'd be 50 people there. There'd be 100 people there. There'd be pit teams everywhere, generators going, all of this noise, all of these things going on, and it just wouldn't be the same. So anyway, With that being said, guys, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Looking forward to our next one coming up. Remember, if you are out riding, do not forget to tag us at Chasing Waypoints. Hashtag Chasing Waypoints. And if you haven't already, get on over to the website. Get signed up for the newsletter, the Bivouac, North America's rally raid and adventure riding newsletter. Hey, let's have some fun. Let's find out what are you guys up to. Let's get you featured. If you're a brand and looking to get supported, get some eyeballs, get some ears on your business. Absolutely, hit us up. Send us a message at podcast at Chasing Waypoints. But anyway, that is a wrap. Remember, shiny side up. See you guys.